I want to thank everyone here in the webinar who joined. Just a couple of things about me. I'm one of the advisors and the match guy. My name is Alexi Bousamra. I am an attending in general pathology at Allegheny General Hospital and West Penn Hospital here in Pittsburgh. I've been an attending for 9 years. I was an associate program director for 3 years. And I still, although I'm not anymore like program director or like part of the residency, program, but we have a residency program, and I do still interviews for any, like in the new interview cycle for this year. I'm signed up to be one of the attendings who interviews. So I do have an experience with that. And I've been actually working this year with a few candidates also to help them prepare really well for their interviews during the match cycle. In this webinar, I'm going to be mostly talking about, how to prepare yourself for the interview. What are things we need to look into? What kind of questions you typically get? Those are universal questions. And what kind of questions you can ask as well. Because remember, when you interview, it's not you only being interviewed. You are also trying to find out more about the program itself and testing whether you can actually fit in the program. Obviously, that depends on the candidates. Some candidates have more interviews than others, so they can actually have more opportunities to assess, okay, this is a program I can see myself in. But other candidates don't have many interviews, so they don't have too many choices, but they can still like find out if this is a good fit for them or not. So the main thing I want to say about the interview is you're trying to make sure to let the interviewer know your worth. What is your value? In a way, you're trying to help them find out why you're a person that is, a good candidate in their program. So by reframing that you are the one trying to help the interviewer find out why you're the right person for the program, you're actually taking a bit away the anxiety and the anxiousness and the nervousness that you might have before an interview, because you're in a way trying to actually, bringing value to the program that you're interviewing with. So that's number one. The second thing is that, how you portray yourself in terms of body language is going to be very, very important. That's a very important strategy in my opinion. And body language involves a lot of things. Obviously, like posture is important. You want to make good eye contact. There is also the speed of the way you talk. A lot of people, because they're nervous, they can speak really fast, when in fact, the slower you talk, the better, because some people are not able to understand what you're saying, especially if you talk really fast. So it's important to slow it down. Another one would be eye contact. For example, right now I'm talking to you. If you can see me, I'm looking at the camera. But a lot of people, they try to look too much away, or they look too much into the camera. So in a way, you have to balance it out. You've got to look into the camera. You've got to also look outside the camera as well from time to time when you're thinking about an answer, or trying to figure out how to respond to a question. Another one would be the energy you bring. And that's very important for me because some candidates, they essentially are shy or nervous. So the energy does not come across the Zoom or whatever the media that is being used for the interview. So you want to bring your best energy forward. And that's being a bit more lively. In my opinion, the intonation of the voice is going to be super important when talking about energy. And that means not having a single monotone voice. So let's say I, talk about myself, or I answer a question about why am I interested in the program. There has to be a variation in the intonation of the voice. So right now, I am talking, and you can see that I sometimes raise my voice, and sometimes I decrease the intonation of the voice. So there is a play in the intonation of the voice, and that's important to bring the energy forward. Some people are naturally energetic. Some people, the way they talk is like that. But other people, they need to work more on it. I always tell the candidates the best way to practice answering some of the questions that are present on the Match Guy website. There are 200 questions that are available. You can actually practice answering them. I think you can do that with someone you trust, someone who can give feedback without holding back, and be very honest with you. It could be like a sibling, it could be a partner, it could be a parent. But if you don't have any of those, you can actually practice out loud in front of a mirror. That's the best way, in my opinion, to repetitively and rehearse those answers to those questions. And the more you rehearse those questions, the better you'll be able to answer them, because you know better about the content of your answers. So every time you repeat the answer, you'll be able to think about the content of your answer, and you can edit out what to say and what not to say. Now, in the Match Guide, there are obviously like so many advisors that can help you out depending on the specialty that you are applying for in the match. I am a pathologist, so I help out a lot of the candidates who are applying in the pathology program. However, there are advisors in all sorts of fields, in pediatrics, in internal medicine, in surgery, etc. I did help out some people in pediatrics, in internal medicine. So that is because there are questions that are being asked of you that are universal. You really don't need a specific certain type of advisor. But obviously, if you have most of your interviews in a certain specialty, it's preferable that you work with someone that is within that specialty, because they know the ins and outs of that specialty, what to ask. There are specific questions that are asked within pediatrics that are not found in pathology, or within pathology that are not found in internal medicine, and etc. There are plenty of questions that are asked, but I want to start first. Before the questions start, there is something that is called small talk. Small talk is like something you talk in the elevator with someone. It's something to break the tension. Okay, so you can say, or they usually start, the interviewer usually start, oh, how's your day going? Or where are you Zooming from, or where are you talking from? It might be someone in a different country. Like, it doesn't have to be in the US. It can be in, India and Lebanon and in any country you're from. So you can talk about your day. Oh, here it's night. I've had a great day. I've had a busy day. Stuff like that. The reason why small talk is important, it breaks off the tension. It makes you less nervous. And now you can relax and talk freely and, without holding when it comes to the Q&A section. So don't worry about small talk. Actually, I advise you to engage in small talk, okay? The small talk section is going to be very short, obviously, because they want to know more about you by asking questions. But it's a way to actually interact with that interviewer and, get things going. It also lets you practice about the intonation. So you can, play with the word, play with the tone of your voice right from the start. Now, when it comes to the questions, there are common questions, and the most common ones are, okay, they want to know more about you. They might have read your CV, they might have not read your CV, but essentially the most common question is, tell me about yourself. And what I tell the candidates that I work with is, tell me about yourself is essentially tell me about your professional career. It's not about the hobbies you like, or maybe you can talk a bit about more of who you as a person you are, but essentially it's about what you did as a background in such and such, in pathology, in pediatrics. Why you got interested in this specialty? Why are you applying for pediatrics or for internal medicine or for surgery, for GYN, etc. So that's what is important. What have you done in observerships, research, maybe like a bit of out research, but it has to be something that is concise. It doesn't have to be too long, not more than a minute and a half. Okay, so it has to be something within a short period of time, because you want to allow more questions to be asked of you down the road. Okay, so you don't want to talk about yourself for a prolonged period of time. For example, let's say, if I go myself and talk about myself when I was applying for the match, here's how I would say it. I am Alexi Bousamra. This is my first time applying for the match. I got interested in pathology because I have had a family within my family, someone who's a pathologist, and I really got interested in it. I actually did 2 years of residency in Lebanon. I'm currently doing my second year, and I want to further my training, and that's why I'm applying for the match in the US, so I can explore pathology and improve my training. I also have done 2 observerships within pathology, and those are one of them in GW University, and another one was at MD Anderson University. So I really want to know more about the specialty, and this is something that I really am interested in. And so this year I decided to get more, further my training, and that's why I'm applying for the match. So in a way, it has to be short. So this one, I just came up with it right now, but I know that if I practice it a bit more, I can get even better answer. So that's how you want to do it. You want to talk a bit about why you're doing it, what got you interested in pathology, and why you're applying for the match. Other questions, obviously, that are common are what made you decide to choose pathology or internal medicine or surgery as your specialty. And another one is what's your experience so far in that specialty? And that's why doing observerships or having done a certain amount of work in that specialty is going to be very important. Now, some people have graduated right from medicine, but they have done electives or some research within their medical school that is within that specialty. Another question is, why did you apply for our program? And that's when the work, some research has to be done. So some work has to be done in that program. And that research has to be done ahead of time by looking at the website, by looking at the faculty within that program, and especially the faculty that you're interviewing with. Okay, so you have to really do some work by looking up those attendings and maybe look up their research, look up their social media, because sometimes they do post on social media. And you can actually look up their Twitter account or the X account nowadays and see if they have done any posting over there, if they're active on the social network or the social media. And, this way you can prepare ahead of time what questions you can ask them when it comes to you asking them question, or maybe answer some questions depending on what area of interest they have. They might ask you some of the questions they can ask. What are you looking for in a residency program? What do you think are your strengths? When working in the residency program. So sometimes they can ask you like difficult questions. What are your strengths and weaknesses? So you need to really know and be comfortable about talking about yourself. This is, in my opinion, shows that you know yourself, and it shows a level of confidence. Oh, okay, yeah, I am. So some of these strengths can be like pretty common, like I'm a hard worker. I kind of like shy away from that. You've got to find a strength that is unique about yourself. Okay, I am good at communicating. I have done a lot of research in that area. When it comes to a team environment, I can delegate well, stuff like that. Okay. And the weakness is something that you want to find about yourself that is something that's reasonable. I used to be, for example, a people pleaser. So I used to say a lot of yes when I should not have been saying yes. And that can be something that is a weakness that you can actually work on and put boundaries by saying no when you are overwhelmed. They can give you scenarios about your specialty. For example, in pathology, we would like to know if they have done any sign outs, if they have experienced any grossing, which is, hands-on work, because I want to see how comfortable they are within the lab. Okay, so there are other specific questions that are asked of you that are specific to that area that you're applying for. Okay, so that's important. Now, there are moments that you might be surprised by the question. You can have unexpected questions. So, how do you approach that? In my opinion, you can take a few seconds to think about it. You can say, oh, no, this is an interesting question. Can I take a few seconds to think about it? So, but don't think too long. I would say think for 5 to 10 seconds. One thing that I don't like personally is when someone tells me, oh, that's a great question. I don't like it because essentially, well, what about the other questions I asked? Were they not good questions? So essentially, I would say either that's an interesting question or thank you for that question. But don't make it too many times. The best way to answer a question is to answer it directly, okay, right away. You don't have to say, that's a great question, or blah, blah, blah. Those are a bit preachy or come across as someone who's a bit looks at himself too highly. So you want to be a bit more humble and answer the question right away. Okay. I know that might sound counterintuitive, but that's how I think about it. Now, when it comes to, after a while, you get asked a lot of questions, but now it's the time for you to ask questions. Okay. The number one mistake that I have had in my experience is when somebody tells me, I don't have any questions for you, especially if I'm the last interviewer or if I'm the last person who's giving the interview. Oh, I asked my questions to the people before you or the attendees before you. I don't have any more questions. That's, for me, a no-no. Okay, so that's something that's never a good sign. You always want to have questions to ask the attending because it shows that you are interested about the program. You have good questions to ask. You have a really curious mindset about the attending, about the program, and that's very important to keep what I call a question toolbox. So you always want to have a certain number of questions at the back of your head to ask. Some of those questions are obviously pertaining to the specialty, pertaining to the program, but other are very common questions. For example, a common question is there a mentorship for the residents when they start? So is there some help for them, especially at the beginning? That applies to all specialties, not necessarily like internal medicine or pathology or whatever. That can apply for any program. The other question is, if somebody is interested in research, are there opportunities for research in this program? And, they can talk about that. Another one would be, do the residents get evaluated on a regular basis and get the appropriate feedback? Because you want to know how well you're doing in a residency on a regular basis. The ACGME usually has a requirement to assess residents every 6 months with the program director, etc. So you want to see how you're doing. And also that question shows that you are a person who's self-aware. You listen to criticism and you act on it. So that's why you want to know if there is evaluation of the residents on a regular basis. And sometimes you get the feedback during rounds, during lectures, or after you give a lecture, or after a sign out in pathology, etc. There's also obviously the common questions of what is the call structure like, what is the rotation schedule like, etc. And there are questions to ask the resident that you're entering with. There are questions to ask a faculty member. There are questions to ask a program director. So for every single person that you're interviewing with, there are different types of questions you can ask. Okay, and we can work on that while you are working with an advisor in your specialty. Sometimes when you get the answer to a question you ask, it's important to give or share your opinion about what they say. It's never wrong to say, oh, that's interesting. I never thought about that way. Or, oh, I love that aspect. This is something that I'm really is meaningful to me. You can say what you think about their answer in a genuine and authentic way. Okay, you don't want to make it fake because you're trying to please that person, but you want to make it as genuine because this is really something that is important for you to know about the program. Um, so those are the main things that I think that are important. Um, there are something that is something that's very important when preparing for a program, for an interview, is to know, like I said at the beginning, whether you would be able to like the program and whether you are able to match in that program. So when interviewing, there are two questions you want to keep in mind. Would I like this residency program, especially if you have many interviews? And some red flags to look for is, and that you can find out from asking the residents, if the faculty isn't always available to teach the residents, or if there are not too many educational opportunities like lectures or journal clubs. And if you ask the residents, what is the main thing you love about the program? If you hear some hesitation, then they might not give you an answer that is really like authentic. That might be also a red flag. The other question you want to ask yourself is, can I get in this residency program? Let's say it's a very, high advance, or like something that is very difficult to get into, or maybe they give you a hint at the end of the day, oh, we loved you, we loved talking to you, and I think you'd be a great fit in our program. That might be a hint that they might rank you high. And if they don't tell you anything, that might not be something that is telling. But sometimes you can get a feel from the interviewers whether you can really actually get into this residency program or not. So you want to be strategic about who to rank high depending on the feel from the interview day. One thing I advise against doing when you obviously this is later down the interview season, but essentially we sometimes used to get, and we still get actually, that someone is going to rank this program very high, number one or like top three. I really highly advise against doing that if you're not gonna rank it in the top three, because essentially they will know if they rank you really high and you end up not being in the program, then you've not really like ranked them high. And if this program has a fellowship program, they will remember you from the interview season, and this would be inauthentic or dishonest of you not to have had them rank them high and not ending up being with them. So only send letters of interest at the end of the interview season by, this is really like something that I'm really interested in, and I'm going to rank you number one or number top three, if you are actually going to really do it. If not, don't do it. Now, I want to talk a bit about, let's say you do the interviews and you end up not matching. There are different, some strategies you can do. Obviously, there is something that's called the SOAP or the scramble, where you apply for the seats that have not been filled within your match. And that's after the match happens. Obviously, like, this is not something you want to do, but it is possible if you end up not being matched in the program. And the main thing, in my opinion, is to not despair and think already about next season if you really want to try out again. I think most people do. But remember, when you try it out again, you're going to have to fortify your CV and your resume. And this is by doing additional observerships or rotations or fellowships in certain programs within the US, because this way you get more connections. You want to also, in my opinion, if you have not done step 3, do it ahead of time. Obviously, like the people do look at step 3, especially for IMGs. So the earlier you do your step 3, the better. And connections are going to be very important. Another way to make connections is to go to conferences. I highly advise the candidates I'm working with is to go to certain conferences, because when they try to find a conference that is nationwide, where there is a residency forum, they can make connections with the programs, and they can introduce themselves to certain program directors. Hey, this is who I am, and try to show your face, and this is how you make connections. And those are the avenues you can use. The main thing here is to know that connections can really be helpful when it comes to the match. I know that connections for me worked as an IMG when I, applied for the match, and helped me so much down the road as well. Doing those observerships is huge. I can't emphasize how much it is important. Now, when you do the interviews, sometimes you don't know those people. And it's important, in my opinion, to follow up with those people. So the interview is not the only period that you're actually interacting with this person. The following the interview, you want to send a thank you email to the person. I prefer sending thank you emails the next day. For this way, you'd had the time to think about it. You'd have time to write your thank you email. Sometimes I like sending templates to the person who I'm working with, so they can use that template, but they also modify that template depending on what kind of subject they talked about. Sometimes a certain specific topic came up about an area within that specialty that you can mention in the thank you email. You can say, I loved our discussion about so and so or such and such, and you can keep the conversation going. Because remember, at the end of the day, you also want to offer value to the person you're interviewing with. This person that you're interviewing with might have had a long day, might have had a tough day, and now you're interviewing with them. For you, you don't want to sound as boring during the interview. You want to be the bright light of the day. You want to be the person who gives them the time of the day that actually is good for them. And that's by having a nice discussion, a discussion that is going to make their day much better. And that's how they remember you. That's how they're going to be at the top of their mind, is by, bringing that energy, bringing that positivity, knowing what is your worth, knowing what is your value, and showing that person what is your value. Those are the secrets that not a lot of people know when it comes to interview, because they feel that when the interview comes, it's only about me, 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 me. And they forget that the interviewer is at the other end of the screen, and they want to also offer value to the interviewer. Okay, so sometimes you want to think about them, and that's how you become at the top of their list. So that's the main thing about the interviews that I want to share in this session. I want to leave time for answering some questions. Again, I mean, the match guy has, you can see on the website like a huge number of advisors, and they keep on growing, because we want to like offer the best interview preparation for the candidates. You're in a way you're offering your time, your money, your effort, and we want to give the best value. So it's important for you to really like not just work during this hour, but take whatever feedback we give you, which is right after the mock interview. The mock interview, again, is the structure of the hour is mock interview for the first half an hour, and then the feedback is given after that. You can book as many sessions as you feel you need. I personally prefer 2 hours because this way they can work on 1 hour with me, and then maybe they can work by themselves, do a couple more interviews, and then get together with me again to rehearse again, see what areas they have not done well or done well, and get additional feedback. So now we have 20 more minutes. I want to leave time to answer some of the questions that you might guys have. So I see here quite a bit of questions. Let me go over some of them. If you have any questions and you want to also like talk, you can raise your hand and I will unmute you. So the first question is, I have my experience in pathology for 3 months in teaching at an institute. Would that count negative in interview? How can it in our family medicine interview? Okay. Actually, no, that would not be as negative. Any experience you have is a positive, okay? There's no such thing as a negative experience. In a way, you are allowed to, let's say, have had experience in pediatrics or GYN or surgery and apply for a different specialty. There's no such thing as, bad experience. But let's say you pivot career or you pivot specialty, then you have to have an explanation of why you did that. You might have had like a different, change of mind. This did not suit you well. Maybe you actually did get exposed to that new specialty and you liked it. So you felt more at place with that and you want to tackle it more. So you did additional observerships and now you're applying for the match. Nobody has, why would they have anything wrong against that? So you said 3 months in teaching at an institute in pathology. In my opinion, that's actually a strength because you have had an experience in teaching and you can use that in your experience in family medicine because teaching is going to be used in every single specialty. You're going to be teaching medical students, you're going to be teaching your fellow residents when you become an upper level resident. So teaching is going to be very important. Second question is, as an IMG, what are the best ways to find information about upcoming conferences and build meaningful connections within the medical community? Yeah, I mean, there are conferences happening throughout the year, right? So look at the conferences that are available and the main ones. I would say the main conferences. Okay. For example, in pathology, we have, I can talk about pathology because I know the conference in pathology, but we have USCAP, we have CAP, we have ASCP. Those are the main three ones. And each one of them has sessions dedicated for residents, residents forums, residents interaction, and interactions with programs. So there are actually a few hours, I would say 5-6 hours, whereby programs are there with their table and they're trying to sell themselves. Okay, they are here, they can give you information about the program. So you can approach them and talk about yourself and say, I'm really interested in your program, and take information and also give your contact information. Hey, apply to a program, this is who I am, and they can write down your name and look at your CV. But essentially, you can look at conferences within the main, like let's say, internal medicine conferences within the US 2025, and then look at the conferences, or pediatric conferences. We have in our pathology, it's called Pathology Outlines, and they have really like good listing of the programs or the conferences that are available within the next year, from one year to another. So for other specialties, talk to people who already are doing internal medicine, friends who already in the US doing internal, whatever specialty you're interested in, and they can tell you what conferences are available for that specialty. Okay, so you can get in touch with the people you already know, and they can tell you what conferences are important to look into. What kind of questions can I ask a new program? That is something that's important to ask, actually, especially if it's a new residency program. I would say the most important question, obviously, is where do you see the program within the next 5 to 10 years? What is the vision for the program? Are there mentorship already implemented to help the residents from the new faculty? What kind of rotations are you doing right now? What areas the new program is working on, or what is an area that the program feels it's a weakness and they can try to improve? So that's important to remember. But I think the main thing is to ask is, where do they see themselves in a few years is very important, because any new program has to have a vision, has to has something that they want to implement that is a bit different than others. So that's going to be important. What do you think professionalism means and how it would play a role in residency? I think when I say professionalism, it's essentially your level of having a system in place. That's how I say. Essentially, you are trying to keep the interest in your program. A lot of residents, when they start, they are obviously highly motivated to do well. But what happens, what I see, is that the motivation or their performance goes down as they go through the residency, either because of personal issues, or they are burnt out, or they are, for whatever reason, I see the performance sometimes decrease. Not everyone, but sometimes the professionalism decreases. In my opinion, the way to counteract that is to have systems in place. And what I mean by systems is a bunch of habits. Because motivation, you don't want to rely on motivation. Motivation is fleeting. Some months you're not going to be motivated. Some months you're going to be down. But if you have a system in place, you can go around motivation. And what I mean by that is I have, for me, for example, I'm going to give you an example. I have a list I want to do, a list of things I want to do, right? The things I like to do is I like to read, I obviously work, I like to socialize, I like to do sports, etc. So for me, those have become a habit, a system. If I do one, I become uncomfortable because I did not do it. Because I do it on a regular basis. If I don't do one, I'm uncomfortable. So professionalism means that I'm gonna read, I'm gonna prepare for a conference, I'm gonna work, I'm gonna make sure I take time for myself to breathe by socializing, by whatever hobby that you have. When you have a system in place, your motivation it looks like it's never been away. You always are doing the same thing, and that's what keeps your performance high. Okay, so this is what you want to do in residency. Sometimes you might encounter personal issues, so you might not be able to perform on the same level. But if you have a system in place, then those habits are there even when things are going not your way. So that's important. So yeah, this is how you can answer it by essentially, I'm a person of habit. I have a systems in place, and I typically try to have these things I work on all the time. So I'm always performing well, making sure what I do on a regular basis is there. I have a routine in place, and that's how I typically, answer that question. No, I think if somebody has personal issues, I mean, I'm sorry to hear that about your mom, Jose, but if somebody has any issues during the interview season, it's people will be empathetic. You want to make it, you don't want to make it as if it's an excuse, but you want to make it as something that's affected you, and at the same time you're working around it. Okay, so you don't want to make yourself as the victim, but you want to make it as if, yes, this is happening to me. I mean, you don't want to make it as something that's dishonest, like this is personal issues that happen to your family member and it's affecting you, but at the same time you're doing something about it. You're not just sitting on your chair and waiting things to be happen to you, because you don't want to sound as a victim. For a common question as what are your strengths and weaknesses, how do you speak about your weaknesses without an oversharer? Yeah, I mean, that's what I would say. I mean, here's the thing, as a weakness, you always want to flip it. You want to share your weakness, but also make sure to let them know you're doing something about it. I always say, like, let's say, when somebody says, I feel bad, somebody tells me, hey, oh, I'm sorry, I feel bad about, doing this. That's non-productive. Feeling bad will not lead you anywhere. Feeling guilty will not lead you anywhere in life. When you feel bad and you feel guilty, you want to do something about it. And even sometimes people say, well, there are some things you cannot do anything about. I disagree with that. Even just listening or doing some, like just being there in their presence, that's also doing something. So when you talk about the weakness part, for example, for me, you can be a people pleaser. You can say yes a lot. Sometimes people like are obsessive about doing so well. They can be uh, look too much into the details. They can be perfectionist. So those can be a weakness, but at the same time, you are doing something about it. Like I'm trying to put myself boundaries. I'm trying to not let the details of something get in the way of getting to the result if you're a perfectionist. So those are the things that you want to flip. How does your programs calculate your YOG? Okay, do they consider the year of graduated? Okay. Yeah, so that's a good question. So a lot of the programs, they like people who are graduated right out of medical school. And I think this is what you're talking about, right? If you are graduating this year but apply to 2027, there are some programs that are not gonna like that. But I say, don't let that be in the way. There are so many programs that don't filter out year of graduation. So you want to look into the programs, and on the match guide, there are actually a list of programs that are going to be listed, which ones take 10 years, within 10 years of graduation, and which ones take within 3 years, and which ones take freshly graduated. But I'm the type of person that believes that if someone has history, it does not take away from how well they perform in the program. Your history should be an asset. Your journey so far before applying should be an asset. Now, I can tell you why they prefer people graduating right out of medical school. Is because they are malleable. They can take them and shape them. Whereas someone who's been far away from graduating medical school, our experiences as faculty, they can be very hard to teach. They can be very hard to be. They are not as flexible as someone who's graduated right out of medical school. So that's why they don't listen very well. They don't follow the feedback very well. So they can be very hard to teach. So that's why we prefer people who are graduating out of medical school, because they are malleable. We can whip them into shape. That's the term I want to use. But at the same time, that can be something that actually you can use as explanation. Like, hey, I know I graduated a long time ago, but one of my strengths is actually adaptability. I am flexible. I can listen, and I can learn fast. So you're a fast learner. Yeah, so behavioral questions like, tell me about a conflict and how did you resolve it? Tell me about something you did. I actually do work that. I do ask that questions on my mock interview. It's a question that you want to answer by way of, I try to go directly and talk to the, person I have a conflict with. I try to resolve it with them in a diplomatic way, in a very amicable way. I try to listen. I try to hear their point of view. Or if I'm the one who's being bothered, I tell them how I feel. I tell them about my needs. And if it does not get resolved, then I can try to include a chief resident or the program director. Or if there is a mistake or a challenge in your life that has happened and how you did that, then you can say that this is something that's affected me, and everybody is different, obviously. So I can work that during the mock interview, and you can say how you overcame it. And saying how you overcame it will tell me as an interviewer what is your strength. Okay, so it will tell me, oh, I like to work with this person because look at how they overcame a mistake or something that is challenging in their life. So that's going to be very telling. But those usually are best told when you work with an advisor. This is the same question. So what are the challenges that you're expecting to face in residency? Essentially, whatever, they feel like, or like you feel like it could be getting used to the system. Maybe if you have some language barrier, maybe you can work on your, on your English. That could be something. Maybe it's getting used to the city. Maybe it could be like a lot of different things. So that also tells me like it depends on the person that you're interviewing with. So everybody has different answers to that question. My challenge, as I can tell you about my challenge, as I went to Arkansas for residency, it was because I had no one. I literally knew nobody in Arkansas. So for me, I was away from home. And so finding the connections right away was difficult. But that's why I would like to know if there's a collegiate environment within the residency, if the residents are, friendly. So that's something that you would like to know. So that's could be an answer that you can turn into a question. If you interviewed on a Friday, should you send thank you letter on a Saturday or wait until Monday? I would wait until Sunday night or Monday morning because nobody's going to read your thank you letters on a Saturday. So I would wait on a Sunday night. This way you have time to think about it and you can actually formulate your thank you email with plenty of time. Should we address red flag? How should we address red flag? Well, this is something that's for you to think about. If you don't have a lot of interviews and you really want to match, then a red flag might not become a red flag anymore because you don't have a lot of choice. Essentially, if you have so many interviews, then you can also decide not to rank that program. But if you have 2 interviews and you see something that you don't like, you still might want to rank that program because remember that at the end of the day, it's not necessarily about the residency program, it's what you make out of the residency program. The residency program is not going to spoon feed you. You are the ones who has to be proactive in taking as much as the program can offer you. Okay, you're gonna be absorbing as much as you can. You're gonna have to be proactive. It's not about, hey, I got into residency program and feed me. Please make me a good resident, make me a good pathologist, or make me a good internal medicine. It's the residency program is there, and that's now your turn to make the most use out of the residency program. Okay, so I'll answer one more question because I need to end it. Do we have chances to match in the US if we had to repeat our second year of medical school? Yes. I mean, again, there might be many reasons why you repeated the second year of medical school. It could be like either a performance or it could be family issues. That should not take away from, matching, especially if you performed really well on your steps. So that should not take away, in my opinion. Yes, it might be a bit of a disadvantage over other people, but at the same time, there could be a valid reason. There could be a very valid reason why you had to repeat the second year of medical school. So letters of recommendation are going to be super important in that case. So you're going to have to be really, really performing well on your third and fourth year and have really good letters of recommendations. Yeah, I don't like to include hobbies and tell me about yourself. Let that be a separate question, because essentially you want to speak about your professional background more, and what have you done within that field. And what is it about yourself, a bit about your character? Like, who am I? You know what I mean? Like, I am someone who is a go-getter. I am someone who does not let obstacles get in my way. I will get whatever I will want. And so speak highly about yourself. I'm someone who communicates very well. I'm compassionate and stuff like that. Okay, last question. And if you have many other questions, I'm not going to be able to get all of them, but you can work with some of the advisors. You can work with me as well. For common questions such as what are you, how do you speak about your weakness? Oh, this is the same question, actually. Sorry. How do you address low scores? Okay. Low scores. When I used to review applications, I personally, I had a low score. I did not have I had like 214 and 204, I think. And look at me, I'm doing very well. So low scores, in my personal view, don't make the candidate. Sometimes low scores is about who you are as a test taker. Some people are not good test takers. I like to see a really good letters of recommendations. That would be my answer. If I see low score, I personally switch to looking at letters of recommendations. And this is how I see if someone is really good or not. Because if 3 letters of recommendations or 4 tell me that this is an amazing candidate and I wish they would be in my program, there's something I would be really interested in having with me. Also, the personal statement is going to be very important, okay? So that's how I would look at letters, recommendations, and personal statement, okay? Those are how I address it. Okay, so for the rest of the people, I'm sorry, I really have to go actually in 5 minutes. But thank you so much for joining. Thank you for listening. If you know, we'd love to have you work with us. This way, you know, I mean, anybody who's joined, that means someone is really like interested in getting better at what they do. We are here for you, and you know, we can work with you as well, whatever specialty that you're interested in. We have more than 60 advisors, and we can work with each one of you. All right. Thank you so much, and have a great weekend. Bye.